Do you feel that you were misled or manipulated as you were going through this process?
Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Like that's all I could say is, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
In our last video on the longest ballot, we revealed who started it, why they allegedly launched it, and how it's perceived. A malicious prank compromising the ability of thousands of Canadians to exercise their charter right to vote. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. We've uncovered internal emails, private videos, and photographic evidence suggesting the longest ballot committee could be crossing legal lines, including possible forgery of nomination forms and operating like an unregistered party, among others. These actions raise serious questions about their conduct under the Canada Elections Act and the Criminal Code and warrant a full investigation. We begin tonight's video by going under the hood, so to speak. We were able to connect with a former candidate that operated in the longest ballot. Let's take a look. All right, thank you very much, sir, for agreeing to lend your voice and come on and talk about the longest ballot committee with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So we'll just get right into this. How did you first hear about the longest ballot committee?
I follow various political pages, and the initiative was mentioned on the Rhinoceros page. I looked into it further and agreed with the core message that Canada's first past post system reinforces existing power structures and is in need of reform, in my opinion anyway.
Okay, so the proposed message that they were putting out there, you resonated with. And when you actually decided to run, what were you told was the purpose of running?
I was told it was to bring awareness to the broken promises of the electoral reform, particularly those made by the Liberal Party, and to push for more proportional representation.
And prior to indicating your intent to run, did you have any prior political ambitions before getting involved?
Yes, I've been involved in politics for most of my life and insisted on various campaigns over the years.
Okay. And what was the process as you understood it in order to run for the longest ballot?
I understand I would provide my name as a candidate, and the longest ballot committee would handle the rest, including appointing a CFO, collecting the required nomination signatures, and filing the paperwork.
Interesting. And part of that paperwork involves collecting 100 nomination signatures as required by Elections Canada. So based on your previous statement, who then collected those signatures?
I was told the longest ballot committee would collect them on my behalf. I don't know.
Do you know if those signatures were gathered before or after the writ had dropped for the by-election?
I didn't join the campaign until after the writ was dropped. I submitted my candidate documentation. Other than the signatures, about 3 days before the nomination deadline.
Okay, so that's pretty down to the wire in terms of elections.
Yeah, well, I'm a busy guy, and they kept on sending me things and like, hey, we've got 50 candidates, we got 70 candidates, we got this. Like, come on, blah blah blah, and I get hundreds of emails, right? And I look and I only read part of it, so I'm like, okay, I should do this, and I submitted my stuff, and that's what I did. I kind of read everything.
So, kind of dovetailing off of that, was your name, to your knowledge, was your name already printed on the nomination forms when the voters were signing them, if they were asking you to complete this paperwork after the fact?
I would assume so. That's how I've always previously run campaigns, and I understand it's a legal requirement under Elections Canada's rules.
Okay. And did you ever personally review or sign the final nomination paperwork before it was submitted?
No, I did not.
Interesting.
The only thing I had to get a notary done. It cost me $40, and I did a Zoom meeting with some kind of legal person, a notary. I guess that's what you call her. And that's all I did.
Okay. And who acted as your official agent during that campaign?
Well, I have a hard time with this guy's name. Kieran, sure, I don't know how to pronounce it, from the Longest Ballot Committee.
Okay, so he's one of the two brothers and kind of the founders of this. Were you allowed to spend money on the campaign?
No, I wasn't especially told that, but I understood that I would choose to spend money. I would need to appoint my own chief financial officer, since this was protest candidacy to bring awareness, and I didn't see the need to spend anything. The act of being on the ballot itself was the message. Like, I did ask him afterwards, like, I wanted to promote it. Like, my whole campaign was going to be, like, let's face it, I'm not from St. Paul's. I'm hundreds of miles away. I'm not going to tell you my location, but I don't know anything about St. Paul's. But I made some TikToks, I made some things, and my campaign was just get one vote. Well, I got 4, and I'm like, out of, I think it was 91 people on the ballot. Like, I'd like to buy those guys coffee because they found me on that list.
So you got 4 times the amount of votes you were expecting.
Yes.
And when you were kind of part of this and the communication was going back and forth, were you in communication with any other of the longest ballot candidates?
No, I didn't coordinate with any other candidates.
Okay.
No. It was very hard to get in touch with the guys that were running the longest ballot, because I really thought it was a good thing at the time, but now with everything else with Pierre, I'm just like they've gone off message. They've gone way off message.
Okay. And kind of dovetailing off of that, do you feel that you were misled or manipulated as you were going through this process?
Oh yes, absolutely. Like it was that's all I could say is it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Do you think that they, as in the organizers, were acting in good faith? Do you think they were exploiting loopholes? Do you think they were trying to circumvent rules?
Well, okay, at the time I believe they were acting in faith, but while doing so, bring awareness to Trudeau's, vow that the federal election of that year would be the last conducted under first past post-electoral system. In February 2017, as Prime Minister, he decided to walk away from that commitment and still believe. I still believe in the commitment, and I still the effort brought attention has broken his promise on electoral reform.
Right. And looking back on it, what are your thoughts? Do you regret being involved in it? Do you because the intent of their message seems to be not what you signed up for?
Yes. I think it was duped, and I don't understand. I understood the message that they brought with, but they even tried. Like they tried in I think this is what, their second or third. This is the fourth time now.
The 6th or 7th at this point, yeah.
Oh really? I think it was I think what was St. Paul's, like third time or something.
I think that might have been the 3rd. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So they tried to get me to do, there's I think another by-election, and then I'm like, I don't have time for this stuff, and then they wanted me to go against they said Bart Carney, and then they tried to trick me basically, and it was actually Pierre's. They never actually did Mark Carney's riding this past election, and now it's Alberta. Like I don't understand the point why they're going for Pierre. Like he's not in power. Like he's not in power right now.
So that was an interesting conversation with one of the individuals that ran in the Toronto St. Paul's by-election, and interesting perspective on this, in that they thought they were signing up for a protest, and that wasn't the case. Apparently all you had to do was hand over your name and your address, and they would take care of the rest. Well, this is where you have to start to ask questions, folks. And we started asking a lot of questions. Now, we've also obtained correspondence between Thomas, Kieran, and the candidates that were actually running in these by-elections. And what we're going to go through now is a chronological timeline of early January 2024 all the way until the federal election in 2025. So you can see what they saw, and then we will get into some serious concerns that we have that may have criminal repercussions. But before we get to that, folks, this is the ridiculous size currently of the list of candidates they're running in the Battle River-Crowfoot by-election. 191 candidates. 181 of those are from the longest ballot. Doesn't matter that you can't see them because there's just too many names on this. So we are now over double the amount of candidates that were on the ballot at the Carleton riding in the 2025 election. It is just beyond ridiculous, folks. Now, we go back to January 5th, 2024. And this is from the longest ballot. This is copying Kieran, his brother Thomas, and Sebastian Carino, or Co-Rhino, of the Rhino Party. Hello, friends. We did it. Thank you, everyone. We have more than 100 candidates. Congrats to everyone involved. Now, the boring part, the Toronto by-election might be called earlier than we expected, so I'm sending out instructions for becoming a candidate. Complete these steps as soon as possible, and please reach out if you have any questions. Okay, so they know that a Toronto by-election is going to be called because the seat ended up being vacant. If you recall, one of the Liberals stepped down and opened up that as a seat. So, no doubt at that time, the longest ballot saw an opportunity, so they swung into action and asked people to basically indicate their interest in becoming a candidate for the longest ballot committee. Now, just because you indicate your desire to be a candidate doesn't mean you'll become a candidate. Anyhow, let's continue. We'll be collecting your 100 nomination signatures in the coming days. Please complete these steps as soon as possible, and please reach out if you have any questions. Now, this is not to anyone. This email appears to be blind copying all of the candidates that they're actually communicating this to. So this raises the first question. If these people are truly running as independent, why are they being managed at a central point? That sounds a lot like how a party would manage all of their candidates running in every riding across Canada. Except these people are managing all of the candidates running in one riding. Just keep that in the back of your head. They've also said that we're going to be out collecting your 100 signatures. Now please do all of these steps. And they point to a Google Drive, which is not accessible unless you have access. And we're not that good. So we don't have access to what those instructions actually were. But needless to say, this is the first mention of these 100 signatures that they are going to go and get for you. January 23rd. This is directly to the candidate in question that sent us this email. Hi, redacted. This past weekend, Thomas, Glenn, and I had a lot of fun collecting your 100 nomination signatures in Toronto St. Paul's. We had a lot of positive feedback and people thought the long ballot was hilarious. Make sure you appoint Thomas as delegate ASAP because there's a good chance the by-election will be called this Sunday and we'll need to upload those signatures fast. Thanks so much for joining us on the long ballot. Kieran. This is a really important email because according to Elections Canada, only the candidate or their delegate can go out representing you and collect signatures. It's according to Elections Canada. Now, the issue here is that this email is saying, candidate, we've already collected your signatures. We need you to appoint Thomas as a delegate as soon as possible, as your delegate for the election. But wait a minute. If Elections Canada requires that only an authorized delegate or the candidate can actually collect signatures, and the candidate wasn't in Toronto collecting those signatures, and the candidate hasn't yet delegated and or authorized that delegation for Thomas to go out and collect those signatures, was he even authorized to collect those signatures? That's the question that we're asking. According to Elections Canada, that may not be the case. And this is where we start to go down the crossing legal lines here, folks. This is important. It's really important. And I'll show you why it's important. Because this is potentially in violation of the Elections Act. So this is Section 480 of the Canada Elections Act, folks. Every person is guilty of an offence who, with intent to mislead, falsely represents themselves to be, or causes anyone to falsely represent themselves to be, e, a candidate or a person who is authorized to act on the candidate's behalf. So if you're already acting as that candidate's delegate, and you haven't been officially authorized by Elections Canada to act as that candidate's delegate, then from our understanding, you're not authorized to go and get those signatures to nominate said candidate. That looks to be a violation. For our understanding, is this correctly? And this is why we're asking the question to Elections Canada. Is this a violation of the Canada Elections Act? Are they breaking the law? That's the question. Let's continue. Sunday, January 28th, 2024. Hello, candidates. Congratulations. If you are receiving this email, you have been nominated by over 100 voters in Toronto St. Paul's. Last weekend, Thomas, Glenn, and myself had a lot of fun collecting your nomination signatures, a total of over 12,000 for all candidates. The people we spoke to there were extremely supportive of the long ballot, and they thought our project was pretty hilarious. We are still waiting for the by-election in Toronto St. Paul's to be called. We will let you know as soon as it is. Now, if you notice, it says there's a photo of us in Toronto St. Paul's. What is that, you might ask? That takes you here, folks. So it's a Twitter post by the Longest Ballot Committee. What a crazy weekend. In 3 days, volunteers collected a record-breaking 12,543 nomination signatures. Thank you to all our new friends in Toronto St. Paul's who signed your names in support of the longest ballot. Let's make first past the post history. Now, in this picture, we finally see Kieran and we finally see Thomas. And that's Glenn on the right there. So Kieran is the one on the left that actually initiated the court challenge in 2017 to strike down the $1,000 entry fee for entering as a candidate in an election. And Thomas has ran in a couple of elections himself on the longest ballot and has now been the official agent for many of the last few. But if you look at this picture, there's some things that are interesting. So what they're holding there, they are holding the forms that are used to actually collect the signatures, which makes sense because they're talking about how many signatures they actually collected. So if you take a look a little closer and you take a look at the top left of those forms, there seems to be something missing. What is missing? Well, here is the actual form from the Elections Canada website. And what you'll notice here is at the top left, this is where the candidate name is supposed to go. And then you see the riding name next to that, and then you see the date next to that. And then under those fields, you see the areas where you're supposed to collect all of these signatures. Okay, fine. But let's go back to that picture. There seems to be a lot of white space up there on all of those pages, folks. So we decided to zoom in and enhance the picture a little bit. Well, that's interesting. On those pages, I don't see a candidate name on either of them. So those are the ones that Kieran is holding. These are the ones that Thomas is holding. And these are the ones that Glenn is holding. All of those pages, at least from what we can see, don't have any candidate names on them. So this could explain these communications from the longest ballot to these candidates that haven't even registered yet, that we already have your signatures for you. Well, if you talk to Elections Canada, and we've talked to them, we've talked to former Conservative MPs, we've talked to current campaign managers, and we've talked to current party officials, that's a problem. That's a big problem. Elections Canada requires that you have the candidate name at the top of those pages so that every single person that's signing is actually declaring their support for that candidate. If that candidate isn't there, who are they supporting? Who are they supporting? And how does that validate those signatures for that candidate at all? Like, again, what candidate? This is the interesting question. And this becomes a real big issue. Why does this become a real big issue? Because if indeed there is no candidate name at the top of those forms, which doesn't look like it's there to us, this could actually be a very serious violation in the Canadian Criminal Code. Specifically, 366, forgery. Everyone that commits forgery who makes a false document knowing it to be false with intent, B, that a person should be induced by the belief that it is genuine to do or to refrain from doing anything, whether within Canada or not. So where's the potential issue here? Well, assuming all that I've said is accurate, where this becomes a problem is when the actual nomination pages are actually handed over to Elections Canada itself. Why? Because Elections Canada is accepting this document as is and as genuine, meaning they're accepting this document as the candidate name was on these forms at the time that all of these people were signing that form. So they're accepting it as that. But it's not, if that's the case. These documents are potentially blank when all these people are signing them. Why would the longest ballot do that? Well, because if you're still trying to rustle up candidates, you're going to have these potentially blank nomination papers already filled out with 100 signatures. You're going to have them at the ready if you don't know who your candidate is. And that would allow you, if that's the way you're operating, to fill in the candidate name afterwards once you've nailed down who's actually going to be running, and then you get to submit that all as one package to Elections Canada. That's why they would potentially do that. And that is potentially not too legal, folks. So that's the question we're asking. Is that what happened? Does Elections Canada interpret this the same way? Does the RCMP interpret this the same way? It's the question that has to be asked. Let's continue. Here's another problem with what may result in that, if that's all true. Making a false document. Making a false document includes C, making a material alteration in a genuine document by erasure, obliteration, removal, or in any other way. What would be any other way? Well, the alteration would be putting the candidate's name there. That's an issue. The other issue is that if these signatures were collected prior to the candidate actually delegating the agent, well, the agent's name is actually filled out underneath on that form. So that would be an issue as well, because you're potentially writing that in without authorization of the candidate, or you're leaving it blank until after. These are serious issues, folks, if this is what's going on. Let's continue. Obstruction. Section 482.1 of the Canada Elections Act. Every person is guilty of an offence who obstructs or hinders or knowingly makes, either orally or in writing, a false or misleading statement to the Commissioner of Canada Elections or any person acting under his or her direction, while the Commissioner or the person acting under his or her direction is exercising or performing powers, duties, or functions conferred or imposed on the Commissioner under this Act. So what are we talking about here? Well, again, if the implication is that the agent who is submitting these signature documents is saying that, yes, everything was filled out according to the letter, according to a Canada Elections Act, and it wasn't, that's where this comes into play. This basically says, are you lying to Elections Canada? And that's the question. Because if they are doing this, if they're going out and collecting signatures on blank forms, they are doing so that is not actually obtaining valid consent from these people, meaning that if that was the case, every single one of these candidates would be an invalid candidate. It would destroy the ballot, because all of them would be invalid. Now, this was just for Toronto St. Paul's. Did they do this for LaSalle or Marver-Dunn? Did they do this for Carleton? Did they do this for Battle River-Crowfoot? That's the question we're asking, and that's the question Canadians need answered. And we need an investigation. But we're not done. May 2nd, 2024. Hello, candidate. Update. We have 75 candidates ready to go for the by-election and another 35 who still have some work to do. You are one of the 35. Don't let your fellow candidates down. We've already collected the 100 nomination signatures. You need to get your name on the ballot. They keep saying that. We already have your signatures. Read the instructions at the link below and register on PESC so we can reach over 100 candidates and get the record for the longest ballot in Canada ever. We've been waiting a long time, but the Toronto St. Paul's by-election will probably be called once the budget passes. Once the by-election is called, we'll just have 2 weeks to do the final steps. So the more that we can be done now, the easier making history will be. Always feel free to contact us if you have any questions. So they keep repeating this over and over again. We already have the signatures. We already have the signatures. Well, what if you suddenly decide that you're not going to run? Well, they'd have to replace you. How would they replace you? They need signatures. Well, I guess they could go out and get more. But they keep saying that they already have them. You do the math. Now, as it relates to their goals here, they barely even mention that this is a protest. They barely mention first past the post. They seem intent on just breaking the record. That's it. So for them to say that this is a serious effort to actually foster electoral change, it doesn't even come out in their internal communications, never mind their external communications and their external material, where their websites point to badly written songs and rickrolls. Doesn't make any sense. So the public perception of this is basically what it is. It's just a big prank to get a bunch of people some laughs, and that's it. Let's go on to the end of May now. You will need to email the returning officer at the address below ASAP to book an appointment to do a declaration or visit a Service Quebec if you live in Quebec. Returning officer's email. As of this morning, 45 longest ballot candidates have submitted their completed nominations. More than 100 voters living in Toronto St. Paul's have nominated you to run in this by-election. So what are you waiting for? Come join the rest of the candidates and help break the record for the longest ballot in Canadian history and demand a better democracy. Please let us know if you have any questions or need assistance. Now, it's funny that they say you, but this is BCC'd. Who are they talking to? Everybody. Everybody on this list. So, again, it comes back to, are those blanks at the top of those forms? It would certainly explain these types of communication. And notice again, they're communicating en masse, as if a party would. Like a party communicates. Interesting. Let's keep going. June 16th. Hello, candidates and friends. Advanced polls have opened and the reaction has been wild. Please find attached some photos shared by voters online of this year's longest ballot. Here is some other recent long ballot related media. Please check out and share the amazing by-election songs by the fantastic famous Sandhogs. Those poorly written election songs and candidate songs, yeah, that's what I was talking about. It's those guys. And the rest of that media is just, here's something from CBC, here are some pictures of the long ballot, that type of thing. It's again, look at our prank. That's basically what this is. And again, they're not really talking about the protests. They're not really talking about, we think we're going to be starting a national conversation soon. We think we're going to be making headway to electoral reform. Nope. No mention of it at all. At all. So we all know how the Toronto by-election ended up working out, and the Conservatives actually won, much to everybody's surprise, including the Conservatives. So then we found out that there was going to be a by-election in the Montreal area at LaSalle or Marverdun. That was going to take place in the fall. Well, longest ballot wasn't going to sit back and do nothing, were they? And they actually prepared a message as they were leading up to the by-election. And the message was prepared by none other than Thomas himself. Take a look.
Hello, Tomas Jukevich here, official agent for the Longest Ballot Committee. There are already 50 confirmed candidates for the Montreal by-election, but there's only 1 week left until the close of nominations. If we're going to break the record for the longest ballot, we need everyone to sign up as soon as possible. We've already collected 100 nomination signatures for you. All you gotta do is follow the instructions in the email we sent you. Let's make a big push this week to keep the conversation around electoral reform alive.
So that's Thomas. That's what he sounds like. And again, we already have your signatures. How? How do you already have the signatures for people who have not even registered and have not even told you that they're even running? Please tell me how you've gotten 100 signatures, people declaring their support for a candidate that hasn't declared their intent to run. That's an important question that we want Elections Canada to ask. Now, a couple days earlier, the whistleblower that has been giving us some of this information, they were communicating back and forth with Kieran about the upcoming by-election. This is what that looked like. Friday, August 16th. Hi, redacted. Sorry to bother you, but we only have a week left before nominations close. Reach out if you need any help. They say, I need lots of help. Kieran replies, LOL, I remember. How far in the steps are you? The person replies, does not having started yet mean anything? LOL, XO. Kieran replies, LOL, well, we'd love to have you. I hope you can wrangle some assistance soon. Person replies, how many people so far are going to break the record? Person replies, it's 53 right now, probably 60 tomorrow. We collected signatures for 109, so it's possible we'll break 100, but it depends on who can get it all done in the next week. Fingers crossed. So the way that Kieran worded that, I think, is interesting. Well, we have 53, but we've collected enough signatures for 109. It's very odd the way that's worded, don't you think? To me, that feels like it's worded like, well, we have a bucket of 109 forms filled out that we just need candidates to fill in. And Kieran here is basically saying to this guy, hey, we'd love to have you. Well, what do you mean we'd love to have you? How can you say to somebody, we love to have you, but we already have the signatures? How can you say that? How can you say that if all of these signatures were already attributed to this particular person? How can you say that? That's the question, folks. And it comes down to if these forms are actually being filled out blank and they're being signed by 100 people blank, nominating a blank candidate, at the time of that signature, it means that those forms are all invalid. And it also means that there's some potential criminal acts going on. Potentially forgery, potentially impersonation. We've already showed you them all. These are some serious issues that this all reveals, folks. The timing of these communications, what they're saying, the fact that they've showed these documents filled out and it looks blank at the top, and the fact that they're talking to this person saying, well, you know, we hope you'll run, but we already have signatures. So he hasn't even declared whether he's going to run, meaning he hasn't declared who's the official agent, meaning who is getting these signatures for somebody that hasn't registered as a candidate and hasn't declared an official agent. These are problems, folks, if they're actually the case. Now, after the Montreal by-election happened, this person didn't actually run in it. The longest ballot decided to give everybody a keepsake. Call it a party pin, if you want to have an analogy. This is what it is. The longest ballot committee, Toronto 2024, Montreal. So Toronto, Montreal 2024, basically commemorating the two by-elections. It says, good evening, Toronto, St. Paul's, and LaSalle Armar Verdun candidates. Just a reminder, we have an awesome looking limited edition pin commemorating 2024's longest ballot, and we would like to send one to you. Just email us your mailing address and we'll get one to you in a week or so, Kieran and Thomas. P.S. If you already asked for one, it should arrive in a week or so. Looks kind of like a party symbol to me, folks. Moving into 2025, where the federal election is becoming imminent. On February 23rd, hello candidates, former candidates, and friends. Everyone saying Carney is going to win the leadership at the Liberal Party and will call an election immediately afterwards. If so, this means an election could be called March 10th, which is soon. We need your help finding even more candidates to help make 2025's longest ballots spectacularly long. As you may or may not know, most of our fellow candidates are friends, partners, sisters, brothers, and parents of other candidates. This appears to be the way we grow. So if you have anyone else in your life who get a kick out of our fun little project, have them email us before our deadline of March 5th, 2025. This is kind of the way political parties grow. Friends, affiliations, you know somebody, hey, bring them all in. Kind of feels like a political party to me. But in February, they were already talking about the 2025 federal election. They seemed desperate to get our whistleblower back in, but our whistleblower didn't seem to respond. Monday, March 31st. Hi, it's me, Kieran from The Longest Ballot. This is just a friendly reminder to get your nomination forms submitted ASAP. I emailed you the nomination signatures and official agent form a few days ago. If you didn't get the forms or need any help or have questions, let me know. And again, how do you not have an official agent authorized, but you already have those signatures? That's the question. Friday, April 4th. Reminder, Saturday, April 5th. Hi, just a reminder to submit your nomination ASAP. Close of nominations is noon. Monday, April 7th. We're tantalizingly close to 100. I hope you can make it in time to get on the ballot. Sunday, April 6th. No problem if you're too busy, but deadline is 12 p.m. your time tomorrow. We're incredibly close to 100. Just follow the last email instructions I sent and you'd probably make it on. Okay, folks. Less than 12 hours to the nomination cutoff. This person has not replied to them. and said, yes, I'm going to run. And how are they supposed to get 100 signatures? How are they supposed to get the official paperwork to designate an agent for the person and get all of this done within 12 hours, collect 100 signatures, and then get on the ballot? Right. They keep saying, we have your 100 signatures already. Now, the whole thing behind this, the entire organization, and that's really what it is, the organization, the Longest Ballot Committee, they look to be operating like a unregistered political party because they have mass communication to all the people that are running for them. They're directing them all to follow the same instructions. They all have the same agent. They all have the same process. They're sending them these emblems, these keepsake pins with their logo on it. So if you're all part of the same organization, you're all running under the same cause, you're all running under the same agent, how is that not a political party? And you may be asking, who cares? Who cares if they're a political party or not? Well, there's a very important stipulation in the Canada Elections Act that this applies to, folks. Let's take a look. This is under the Elections Canada Act. Candidates continued. Nomination of candidates continued. Party may endorse only one candidate per district. Section 68(1). A political party may endorse only one prospective candidate in each electoral district for a given election. So you have an organization that seems to be acting like a political party, but hasn't registered as a political party. Because if they did register as a political party, they wouldn't have any long ballot at all. They would only be able to run one candidate. And I think a lot of people could get behind running one independent candidate under this banner of protesting elections and things like that. Sure, people could understand that. It's still a little bit bizarre, but people could at least understand that better. But the fact that they're intentionally not registering as a political party, even though they are acting as one. Now, they don't fundraise and that sort of thing, and they don't really have a published platform, but they kind of do have a platform. Their platform is they want electoral reform. That's what they want everybody to believe. Or maybe this is why they kick up all these jokes. Who knows? But this might be the biggest implication of all, because if they are, and if they should be a political party, that's for Elections Canada to decide and interpret their own legislation. Then this also invalidates all of these candidates that have run in all of these by-elections. So what we've pretty much uncovered here, folks, and I hope you've stuck with us to the end, is a huge mess. A complete mess. And we are calling on Elections Canada, and we're calling on the proper authorities to launch a full investigation into this. Because if they are actually liable for these issues, and if these are criminal acts, the implications are huge, folks, because that's potentially 4 to 5 different counts per candidate, times how many candidates, times how many elections. That's the question. And that's the question Canadians need answered. And we want it answered right now. Thanks for sticking with us. I hope we've earned your subscription after this. And we just want Canadians to have the truth, and we want fair and accessible elections for everybody. That's what our forefathers fought for. That's what they bled for. That's what they died for. And we all have the right to vote. Not just the people that it's easy for, the people who have disabilities, people who have trouble seeing, people who have trouble with their hands, people who have trouble with their minds. Everyone deserves the right to vote unimpeded And that's what we will continue to fight for.